إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله فاللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. My brothers and sisters in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to have the taqwa of Allah, which is the consciousness or righteousness or fear of Allah, as is rightfully due to Allah, and to not die except as Muslims. To proceed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in multiple verses speaks to us about the importance of time and how in essence everything that a person owns can be one of three categories, and one of them is time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for example in Surah Al-Furqan, هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ خِلْفَةً لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يَذَّكَّرَ أَوْ أَرَادَ شُكُورًا. He is the one who has made the night and the day as a reminder, as a tool for you to remember Allah Azza wa Jal. The night and the day were made in order for us to manage how we worship and when we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He says, أَوَلَمْ نُعَمِّرْكُمْ مَا يَتَذَكَّرُ فِيهِ مَنْ تَذَكَّرَ وَجَاءَكُمُ النَّذِيرُ فَذُوقُوا فَمَا لِلظَّالِمِينَ مِن نَصِيرٍ. He says, have we not given you a life, an age? Everybody here has an age. Everybody here has so many years that they've spent on this earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is asking us a question that there is a reminder for us in that number that we all know very well, how old we are. That there is a reminder in it for us to reflect on how much we have left on this planet. And for us to think, how have we spent those years? And that in reality, it's similar to our wealth. The amount of money that we have, you have a budget, how are you going to spend every dollar that you have? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us time as well. And we have to budget our time just like we budget our wealth. We have to spend our time just like we spend our wealth. If I decide to spend all of my wealth on clothes, for whatever reason I have, I'm doing it for a reason. And if I decide to spend my time in whatever it is that I'm spending in, I'm also spending it for a reason. And inshallah ta'ala today, we will talk about some of the ways that we can better the way we spend our time. And some of the ways from the Quran and the Sunnah, and of course from the examples and the ways of some of these righteous predecessors and how they invested their time. Because the Prophet ﷺ says, لا تزول قدم عبد حتى يسأل عن أربع. That the feet of the son of Adam, meaning this human being, will not be moved on the day of judgment until this person is asked about four things. Four things. عن شبابه فيما أبلاه. About his youth, where did he spend it? His youth, where did he spend it? He's mentioning it because it is only a limited amount of time that a person has when he is young. This is it. There's not more. And if the person does not invest it wisely, the rest of his life is perhaps not going to go that well. Which is why it is very important for us to not only invest in our youth, but to have our youth trained in how to invest their time properly, to understand really the importance of how they spend it. This is why there's a poet, he says, أترجو أن تكون وأنت شيخ كما قد كنت أيام الشباب لقد كذبتك نفسك ليس ثوب دريس كالجديد من الثياب. He says, do you assume that you are going to be the same way when you get old as you were when you were young? He says, you are lying to yourself, because the new garment is not the same as an old one. There is a huge difference between the two. This is why it is very important for us, of course, to understand this. So he says, حتى يسأل عن أربع عن عمره فيما أفناه. About his age, his time, his life. What did he spend it doing? What did you spend your life doing? What did we spend our life doing? When we stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're going to have to answer this question. Which is why it is very important for us to answer the question now before it is too late. You have to answer the question now before it is too late. Umar ibn al-Khattab radhiyallahu anhu, he used to say, حَاسِبُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا. Hold yourselves accountable before you are held accountable, meaning by Allah. Because if you reflect and you think about what have I been doing my whole life, if a person has this epiphany, which everybody has, then of course they're going to change it. If they are sincere, if they understand their goals in life. عن عمره فيما أفناه وعن شبابه فيما أبلاه وعن ماله من أين اكتسبه وفيما أنفقه. And about his wealth, where did he get it from and where did he spend it in? وعن علمه ماذا عمل به. And about his knowledge, what did he do with that knowledge? The Prophet ﷺ is telling you that in essence you own only three things. There are three things that you own. You own wealth, you own money, you own time, and you own knowledge. You're going to be asked about all three. Your wealth comes and goes, but your time does not come and go, because once it's gone, it will never come back. Once a day goes, that day is gone, it will never come back. But a dollar can come and go. Which is why the Prophet ﷺ is telling you, you will be asked about where did you get that dollar from. But he will never ask you where did you get that time from. Because the time is something that he has given everybody. And trust me, time is such a valuable commodity that we do not realize how actually valuable it is. There are billionaires and millionaires and even thousandaires, if this is a word. People who would spend so much money to have a day that went in the past. And how many of us has this actually happened to? I wish that I had this day over again so I can redo it. I wish that I had that year again so I could redo it. I wish that I had my youth again so that I can redo it. But of course, this can never happen. Which is why it is so important for us to think about this time and how it is today. Unfortunately, having our youth and how sometimes it seems wasteful it is for them to spend their time doing whatever it is that they do, it is highly important for us to encourage them to do something beneficial. To at least have some sort of balance in their life. To have some sort of discipline in their life. And this is not a new phenomenon, this is an old phenomenon. There was a scholar, his name is Al-Khatib al-Baghdadi. He was in Baghdad, he was a very good known orator. And he says, رأيت الشباب في الأسواق والشوارع وعلى شواطئ دجلة. He says, I used to see all of these youth just spending their time away, hanging out. This is the word that of course we use now. He didn't use that word, but this is what he's basically describing. People just hanging out, wasting their time away. What are you doing? We're killing time. We're killing time. When in fact, all we are is time. All we are on this earth is time. And so when you say you're killing time, in essence, you are saying I'm killing myself very slowly with something that will neither benefit me here or in the hereafter. And so he says, فَشَبَّهْتُهُمْ حِينَمَا رَأَيْتُهُمْ بِرُكَّابِ السَّفِينَةِ وَهِيَ تَجْرِي بِهِمْ وَهُمْ عَنْهَا غَافِلُونَ. He says, I saw them, it's as if they were upon a ship, and the ship is going somewhere with them and they have no idea where the ship is going. They're just on the ship and they're just hanging out. And so many people live their lives the same exact way. The ship of life is taking us somewhere and we have no idea where it's going. This is why the first step in utilizing time in a better way is to identify the goal. To identify the goal that we have for ourselves in life. If we ask ourselves, what is our goal? Everybody should answer, our goal is to enter paradise. Our goal is Jannah. This is our goal. This is the number one goal. And if there's no number two, there doesn't have to be a number two. If a person wants to add a number two, this is fine. A goal here in this life first. You say, you know what, I want to get into the medical field and help cure people from their sickness. This is a great goal to have. But in the end, this goal will also lead to the hereafter. I want to teach people. I want to benefit people. I want to benefit people through my wealth. I want to become wealthy, but I'm becoming wealthy to benefit those around me, my family, the ones that I take care of in my community, etc. These are all good goals. But so many of us, we do not have this goal as a true goal. What is the true goal? The true goal of the person is, what do you go to bed worrying about? And what do you wake up in the morning worrying about? When you wake up in the morning, what's that first thing that creeps up into your mind? That's your goal that you have, without you even realizing it. What is the first thing that I worry about when I wake up in the morning? This is your goal in life. Whether you like it or not, this is the true goal. Which is why the Prophet ﷺ, he says, مَنْ أَصْبَحَ وَهَمُّهُ الدُّنْيَا Look at this. Whoever wakes up and his worry is the dunya, this life. جعل فقره بين عينيه وفرق عليه شمله ولم يأته من الدنيا إلا ما كتب له. He says whoever has, as soon as he wakes up, his whole worry is the dunya, my business, my work, my whatever. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will put his poverty between his eyes. He will not feel rich, he will feel always poor. Even if he's a millionaire, he'll always feel poor. He doesn't have enough. There's no content whatsoever. And Allah Azza wa Jalla is the one who's doing this to him. Because this is what he's done to himself. That the thing that he's running after is not the pleasure of Allah. It is the dollar and the cent. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, جَعَلَ فَقْرَهُ بَيْنَ عَيْنَيْهِ. He puts his poverty right between his eyes. وَفَرَّقَ عَلَيْهِ شَمْلَهُ. And then he divides all of his humum. All of his worries are east and west and right and left. He has no idea where he's going in this life. And then he says, and only what Allah has already preordained 50,000 years before He created the heavens and the earth is what the person will get. However, مَنْ أَصْبَحَ وَهَمُّهُ الْآخِرَةِ. Whoever wakes up and his only goal is the pleasure of Allah. He's thinking about the hereafter. This is the only thing that I want. جَمَعَ اللَّهُ لَهُ شَمْلَهُ. Allah will gather all of His affairs. He'll take care of a lot of your affairs. وَجَعَلَ غِنَاهُ فِي قَلْبِهِ. And He will put His richness, the content in his heart. He'll be happy with what he has. He'll be satisfied. So many people, all they want truly is satisfaction. I want to be satisfied, but they're never satisfied. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that I will give you that satisfaction if you do what I tell you. If you're worried about what I told you to be worried about. And وَأَتَتْهُ الدُّنْيَا وَهِيَ رَاغِمَةٌ. And the dunya will come to him forcefully. Allah will force it to come to him. This person will actually be a wealthy individual. He'll be well off. He'll be taken care of. So this is step number 1. Step number 2 is to understand that the game never ends. Life ends when it ends. But that a person should never take a day off from the pleasure of Allah. Many times people go on diets and they have a cheat day. In Islam, there is no cheat day. There is no, you know what I mean? Today I can take the day off, I don't have to pray. Today I can take the day off, I don't have to worry about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today I can take the day off and put away everything that I'm... No, you have to focus on everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you to do every single day of your life until the day that you die. And this is how, subhanallah, many of the righteous predecessors, they lived their lives according to this rule. Al-Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah, many of us know him. Or many of us have heard this name, Al-Imam al-Bukhari. Because of his book. Look at what he's contributed to the Muslim Ummah. There's not a single student of knowledge except that he knows his book. He has read his book. But many of us do not know, subhanallah, some of the more intimate things about his life. Imam al-Bukhari, rahimahullah, Muhammad ibn Ismail, he used to always recite these 2 verses of poetry. And he said he made them like the motto of his life. This is how he used to live his life, according to these. And he used to say, اغتنم في الفراغ فضل ركوع فعسى أن يكون موتك بغتة كم صحيح رأيت من غير سقم ذهبت نفسه الصحيحة فلتة. He says, you should always utilize your time في فضل ركوع. You have free time, worship Allah in it. Make some ruku'. This is basically what it's saying. Make some ruku'. فَعَسَىٰ أَن يَكُونَ مَوْتُكَ بَغْتَةً. That perhaps your death will come all of the sudden. And he says, how many people have we seen that were healthy, living perfect lives? فَذَهَبَتْ نَفْسُهُ فِي لَحْظَةٍ فَلْتَةٍ. He says that his soul all of a sudden, disappeared and he died right there on the spot. And subhanallah himself, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, this is how he died. He actually died sudden death. He had a heart attack, died on the spot. He didn't have a prolonged, for example, death. He just died right there on the spot. تعددت الأسباب والموت واحد. That the reasons are many, but the outcome is one. Which is why we always have to be ready for death at every instant. And this is what Imam Bukhari really, rahimahullah, was saying. You have to be ready for death at all times. And we have to do righteous deeds up until the day that we die. Which is why the Prophet ﷺ, when he says, إِذَا قَامَتِ السَّاعَةِ وَفِي أَحَدِكُمْ فِي يَدِهِ زَرْعَةٌ. And in there, he says, if the day of judgment starts, and in the hand of one of you there is a plant, فَسِيلَ فَإِنَ اسْتَطَاعَ أَنْ يَزْرَعَهَا فَلْيَزْرَعَهَا. That if the person can plant it, let him plant it. Even if the day of judgment is starting. Why? Because we need to do righteous deeds until the last day. There were many scholars who they were still studying their books of knowledge on their deathbeds. And their students would come to them and say, Ya Shaykh, what are you doing? You're dying right now. Don't worry about this knowledge. He says, I have been living my life according to this way. This is the only way I know how to live. I am learning until literally the day that he dies. He is in learning. In fact, some of them, and this is the third step, is to always schedule out everything that we do and utilize every minute that we have. Shaykh al-Islam bin Taymiyyah, his grandfather, he says, used to listen to knowledge being recited when he couldn't read himself, to the extent that he had one of his students read to him from the books even while he would take his showers. And he used to tell the person who's reading the knowledge, raise your voice so that I can hear while he's taking the shower, because this is how much he wants to utilize every single second of his day. There's not a single second wasted. I'm not even going to waste a second while I'm in the shower. I'm going to be doing something beneficial as well. How many of us live our lives according to this way? Every single thing that you do. Some of the students of knowledge, you read their biographies, they used to say, we didn't eat cooked food because cooking food took too long. And he said, I lived for years while I was learning knowledge, eating only raw food. Even meat sometimes, he said, I would eat it raw because it takes too much time and my time is valuable. I need to spend it in learning and benefiting Islam. These people are in a very different place than many of us living today, where we say, today I'm killing time. There was a friend of mine, he says we were in Hajj on the day of Arafah, in Arafah. We were in Arafah. And in one of the tents, he walks in and he sees a group of men playing cards. They're playing tarnib. In Arafah, on the day of Arafah, the holiest day out of the year. Bil-ittifaq. This is agreed upon, the holiest day out of the year. They're sitting there and on the holiest, one of the holiest places on the face of the planet, and they're playing cards. And the Shaykh says, what's going on? What's he want? Shaykh, we're just, spending our time. We're, killing time. بنضيع وقت. This is what they said. We're wasting our time, basically. We're waiting until Maghrib, and then we'll pray, we'll combine, and we go to the next stop in Hajj. And the Shaykh is telling them, do you realize where you are? Do you realize what day it is? Do you realize how much, forget about all this, how much money have you spent to be able to come here to worship, and you're not worshiping? How many people on the day of judgment will wish that they had one day to go out, to go back, and they say what? لَعَلِّي أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا. Perhaps that I can do something good. فِيمَا تَرَكْتُ. In what I have left behind. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He praises the people who utilize their time wisely. He says, كُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا هَنِيئًا بِمَا أَسْلَفْتُمْ فِي الْأَيَّامِ الْخَالِيَةِ. He says, eat and drink happily because of how you spent the days that went in the past. How you spent the days that went in the past. So my brothers and sisters, today, all we have to do, the khutbah, all it is to ask ourselves, how have we spent our days? And how we are going to spend our upcoming days. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الخلق وأشرف المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Could we please ask the brothers to come forward to make room for the people in the back? The next step, we have mentioned a few steps. One is to identify the goal for which we live. Because if you have the goal through which you live, you will be able to, number two, prioritize everything according to this goal. Because when a person is asked to prioritize, they say, well, if this is my goal, then this is what I need to do to achieve it. If my goal is truly to enter Jannah, if my goal is happiness, what do I need to do to be happy? And don't think that the image of happiness that you see on the television set is actually what happiness is about. If I think that I see this person driving a brand new Mustang, this means that this person is happy because I see that he's happy in the commercial. Do not believe this image. It is a false image. It's called Hollywood. And they make it seem glamorous and beautiful and nice. Where in reality, what is happiness? Happiness is content. Happiness is ar-rida, which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions content in multiple places because this is truly what people want to achieve. Happiness is being with their family. Happiness is living in a safe place. Happiness is so many other things that we can, inshallah, will talk about in upcoming khutbahs. But if that is our goal, then we need to prioritize according to that goal. And then everything, of course, will fall into place. And the prioritization is not knowing good from right. Right from wrong. Good from bad. This is not prioritization. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows what, generally speaking, good and bad are. But prioritization is knowing of the two goods that I have, which one is more important now for me right now at this moment. This is why many times you'll find scholars, they ask this question, and many times you think that this is an arbitrary question, it doesn't really affect me, it actually does. They say, for example, which is more important? Al-istighfaru am at-tasbih? Asking Allah for forgiveness or making tasbih, glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the answer is, it depends on the individual. If I am a sinner, and I have a lot of mistakes, which a lot of us do, and myself is the first amongst them, then perhaps we need to make more istighfar. But if, and this is why Ibn Taymiyyah himself, Shaykh al-Islam, he mentions this. This was his answer to this question. He says, إِذَا كَانَ الثَّوْبُ وَسِخًا لَزِمَهُ التَّنظِيفُ. If the garment is dirty, then we need to clean it. وَيُنَقَّ الثَّوْبُ بِالْإِسْتِغْفَارِ. And the thawb, the garment, is cleaned by istighfar. Because when a person makes istighfar, he asks Allah for forgiveness, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him and erase away those sins and erase away that filth and remove it and clean the individual. However, he says, وَإِذَا كَانَ الثَّوْبُ نَظِيفًا لَزِمَهُ الْبَخُورُ وَالْعِطْرُ. He says if the thawb, if the garment is now clean, what we need to do is to beautify it and to make it smell nice and to add some fragrance. وَهَذَا الْعِطْرُ هُوَ التَّسْبِيحِ. And the tasbih, the glorifying of Allah Azza wa Jal, is this good smell that we add to the garment. So everybody review themselves and think, what do I need in this moment? What is more important for me? To learn Quran or to recite Quran? To memorize Quran, to learn ahkam al-tajweed. Many people read the Quran and it's like you look at them, they're reading it like a newspaper. This is not the way to read Quran. There are ahkam that need to be learned. If I do not know the ahkam properly, I need to go and learn them. To learn how to recite the Quran the way that the Prophet ﷺ recited it. It's not a newspaper. These are the words of Allah Azza wa Jal. And then once I do this, do I have any memorized? I do not. Then I need to go and memorize. What will help me memorize? Do I know the meaning of what I'm reciting? Many people do not. I need to learn the meaning as well. And then most important, out of all of these, am I applying what the Quran is saying? Because if I'm not applying it, then everything else will not benefit me. I have to live by this Quran. And so prioritize. If I know how to read, then I move to the next one. I know how to recite, I move to the next one. I have it memorized, then I can recite. I learn its depth. I go into more and more detail. But we need to always prioritize everything that we do to achieve our goal. And in this prioritization, inshallah ta'ala, we can do it. And to understand that it's an ongoing process, and we mentioned this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ وَإِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَارْغَبْ. And once you are free, then go and stand in front of Allah Azza wa Jal. Meaning once you have time, you have free time, you're done with the busy work that you were in this dunya. Many of us are busy with our dunya. I'm not saying that a job is bad or a business is bad or gaining wealth is bad. These are not. But these are not our goals. This is not what Allah is asking us on the Day of Judgment. Allah will not ask you, did you open up a business? He will not. He will say, when you open the business, where did you get your income from? Was it haram or halal? And then He says, where did you spend what you got from that income? Did you spend it in haram or halal? This is what He will ask. This is why the Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُبْغِضُ كُلُّ جَعْضَرِيٍّ جُوَاظٍ صَخَّابٌ بِالْأَسْوَاقِ جِيفَةٌ بِاللَّيْلِ حِمَارٌ بِالنَّهَارِ عَالِمٌ بِالدُّنْيَا جَاهِلٌ بِالْآخِرَةِ. Man, this is a very, we're going to have to explain this hadith a little bit. He says Allah dislikes the following, and he mentions almost 6 or 7 categories or characterizations of this individual. He says Ja'dhari and Jawad. Ja'dhari is a person who has foul language on his mouth. Jawad is a person who all of he wants is to gather, to collect, and more. Sakhabun bil aswaq, his voice is always loud in the marketplaces. He has a business, but his voice is always loud, he's yelling a lot. Allah does not like a person who yells a lot. And then he says, Jifatun bil-layl. At night, he's like a dead body, a carcass, meaning he does not wake up at night and pray. He does not have any qiyam whatsoever. And then he says, Himarun bin-nahar. He's like a donkey or like a mule in the daytime. All he's doing is working. That's all he worries about. There are no times where he takes time to worship Allah. He's just, like he says here, Himarun bin-nahar. This is the Prophet ﷺ saying this. He's a mule in the daytime. All he does is work. Then he says, Alimun bid-dunya, mashallah, he's a scholar when it comes to the dunya. You ask him about money, he knows everything there is to know about it. You ask him about business, mashallah, he's a scholar. Jahilun bil-akhirah, ignorant about everything in the hereafter. Nothing with regards to Jannah, to Nar, to what pleases Allah, to what displeases Allah, this person has no idea what's going on. This is a person that Allah Azza wa Jal dislikes. So of course he likes the person who has the opposite. A person who is samihun, the person who has forgiveness, the person who is easy to deal with, the person who is not yelling all the time, the person who is not working all the time, who understands that he's created on this earth for a higher purpose, the person who has knowledge of the hereafter and perhaps is ignorant about a lot of these things. Allah Azza wa Jalla says, يَعْلَمُونَ ظَاهِرًا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَهُمْ عَنِ الْآخِرَةِ هُمْ غَافِلُونَ. They know some about this dunya, but in reality they are completely ignorant about the hereafter and everything that is related to it. Another thing that we ask Allah Azza wa Jal, one of the steps that we can do is in a practical level to schedule out our acts of worship and to schedule our lives around our acts of worship, not the other way around. So instead of me scheduling my salah around my work, I schedule my work around my salah. Try to do this. Wallahi, it'll make your life so much better. Schedule everything around the acts of worship. A person says, and we've said this many times before, Ya Shaykh, I don't have enough time to recite Quran. I want to learn Quran. I don't have enough time. Or I want to read more knowledge. I want to learn. Step number 1, when they say I don't have enough time, this is of course false. What they need to do is, have you ever scheduled it out? They say, because in their mind they say, when I have some free time, I'm going to read Quran. It'll never happen. If you schedule the time out, you say, today I will read Quran at 7 p.m. I will read Quran at 7 a.m. Whatever time you pick, you schedule it. When that time comes, you open up the Mus'haf and you read. This is how it will happen. It will never happen. Because if you say in my free time, guess what? Nobody has free time anymore these days. Even the youth that we have, they don't have any free time. With their school, with everything, if they're doing good in school. Of course, many of our youth are busy with their cell phones. They're busy with their games. They're busy with their TV shows, with whatever. We need to be up on top of them as parents to at least have them balance their lives out. We're not saying to outright ban a lot of these things, but there has to be a balance. Unfortunately, the scale is on so one side that it's not on the other. And these people will grow up and they have no discipline, which is why now we're seeing this effects. Many people have now reached the age of when they need to go to work and they do not have work discipline. They could not hold a job. All they want to do is have fun. All they want to do is hang out. All they want to do is waste away their time. When you ask somebody to work and work hard at anything, at their worship, gaining knowledge, or a good job, a good career, it is very difficult for them to do this. This is why the training needs to happen early, and we need to get our youth in this mode to where they're doing this well. The last thing is, of course, al-isti'anatu billahi azza wa jal. This is the last thing that I wanted to leave. Of course, there are many others that we can say in utilizing our time correctly. And in fact, we have talked with some of the brothers that inshallah ta'ala, in the upcoming months, we will try to arrange a time management or a whole life prioritization management class. Not given by myself, but given by an actual expert in this area. to help us better ourselves as Muslims, so that every moment that goes by, we're actually utilizing it for something higher and better. But before this, like I said, the last step is that I wanted to leave today with is al-isti'anatu billahi azza wa jal, which is seeking Allah's help to actually manage our time better. To ask Allah azza wa jal to make us amongst those who actually utilize their time wisely. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah, the great Khalifa, he was able to change society that he ruled over in 2 years and 9 months that he ruled. And a person might say, how long, if we ask right now, how long would it take for society to improve? We would say it would take, it's generations away. Not even years, it's generations away. Maybe our children, maybe our grandchildren, until society, the Muslims, are actually strong again, and they're contributing to society, and they're like the golden days of the Muslim empire. But in reality, it doesn't take that long. If we utilize our time correctly, if every breathing moment we are utilizing it for this goal. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, like we said, changed society in 2 years and 9 months, to where the rule of the person who came before him, all people ever talked about was al-buyut, wal-qusur, wal-tijara, wal-mal. This is all they talked about. They were talking about homes, money, wealth, etc. And during the time of Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he was able to change society to such an extent to where everything that people were talking about was al-hajj, wal-khatma, wa talab al-ilm, wa qira'at al-Quran, wa tasadduq ala al-fuqara, ila akhirih. All they talked about, giving charity, going to hajj, learning Quran, reciting the Quran, etc. People changed, and many of the scholars documented this, and they saw it. And how amazing it was that this became their priority. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal that He keeps our priorities straight for us, and that He guides us to that which is better, and that He makes us amongst those who have utilized their days and their nights towards that higher goal, which is of course paradise and seeking the pleasure of Allah Azza wa Jal. عباد الله إن الله ملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت وسلمت وباركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين أعداءك أعداء الدين ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ربنا لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا دينا إلا قضيته ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة إلا قضيتها ويسرتها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم إنا نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون اذكروا الله يذكركم ولذكر الله أكبر والله يعلم ما تصنعون وأقم الصلاة